When it comes to vegetables, are either of these
So this could be pasta or rice.
pasta or rice, or even it could be it's interchangeable, it's exchangeable.
Okay.
So this is half a cup of potatoes.
It's so weird.
Fine. They're my educational play toys. And this is half a cup of corn. So these are a little bit less calorie dense. So half a cup of corn and half a cup of potatoes contain 80 calories as well.
Really?
So theoretically you could say, okay, I don't want rice tonight. I get a little bit more potato, but my calorie balance, my carbohydrate balance is the same.
Okay.
So it's that whole exchange mentality.
But now, what are you putting, like when you cook it? Is there butter or anything?
There may be. This is just all natural potato for the 80 calories.
Okay.
So we would need to look at, and have no fear. Dun, dun, dun. Here would be that little pat of butter or more. Look, it nestles right in there so nicely. So that's 1 teaspoon.
Okay.
So 1 teaspoon has 45 to 50 calories, depending upon what type of spread you're using.
Okay. I use real butter.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So butter's about 45.
Okay.
Yeah. So, butter can fit in. Really anything can fit in. It's just getting your measuring cups and spoons out and really doing that assessment of how much.
Cool.
Yeah. I know, right? I could play with these things all day. That's why I hold them over here with me. I say, I have to bring my food bottles. So when it comes to vegetables, I'm constantly asked, well, what's a free food? Really, all food contains some sort of calorie content, but vegetables are the most free food on the planet, especially because it's very high in fiber and it gets you full and helps you to stay full. So how many calories do you think would be in that amount of broccoli? That's a half a cup.
50?
25.
Serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Depending on the vegetable, could be 20. Carrots are a little higher at 30 to 35, but really very low. So what this plate method says is you can pile that plate up of veggies. When you make a salad, you're really using the plate method quite well. So that amount of vegetable, right, let's say that's 25, 50, 75, a cup and a half of vegetables is the same amount of calories as in a half a cup of potatoes, corn, and peas. So it's not that this is bad and this is good. They're just different, and they belong in our diet in different portion sizes.
Okay.
Okay?
Cool.
And then we have, I'm throwing stuff here. We have our protein bag. So you had said chicken. So if we put our friend the chicken breast there, it's hard to find a 3-ounce chicken breast these days. Most chicken breasts might be 6, and you could cut them in half to have that portion size. So that amount of chicken breast, skinless, only has 140 calories in it. But it's just dense of protein and very satisfying.
Okay, and that's just baked?
Yeah, that's just baked.
Okay.
Now, if you did want to do... I don't know if you ever do like chicken thighs or anything with the skin on. The skin would increase the calories depending on how much skin you eat. Might be closer to like 170, 180. So it just has higher fat content because you're eating the skin. Okay. This one looks pretty real too. I haven't held this one in my hand lately. So it would be the same thing with exchanges. The women were supposed to do about 3 ounces of protein at a time. So that's 3 ounces of fish. And then I think this one looks like a lot more than 3 ounces because it's fanned out. But let's say that's 3 ounces of pork loin. I think we eat with our eyes too. This one looks a lot bigger. So sometimes it's that presentation too that can lead us to feeling satisfied. Because if you go into a meal thinking, I'm not going to be satisfied, guess what?
Right.
You won't be.
Yeah.
Right. So
it seems like a lot of food.
Yeah, and it looks really big because it's on this small plate. Imagine if I had a 14-inch plate.
Right.
You would be like, that's it?
Right.
Really? So I think there can be some benefit to using the smaller dishware.
Okay, so for, say, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
Because breakfast, of course, is going to be something different. Lunch will be, I can do something like that for lunch and dinner.
And you could even work the plate method, but just in more atypical ways. Like when you do your salad, you really, instead of doing broccoli and these types of vegetables, you're doing the vegetables that way. At lunch, you could also do more of like a raw veggie if you wanted to munch on that. You would just, instead of having cooked veggies, you could have a pile of baby carrots or celery or mixed vegetables. And you still could make, the thought would be, instead of doing maybe a full sandwich, having only, so either having one slice of bread and doing like an open-faced or a half sandwich.
Now, see, with me, I'm not a big bread person, so I really never eat bread
Oh,
like
that's
this.
sure.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
and you could even do. I have a lot of clients who would rather have something crunchy on the side, like popcorn or whole grain crackers.
Yes. Yeah.
So what they might do is instead of making a sandwich, they do one of those romaine lettuce leaves, and then they just make kind of like a sandwich boat where they put their meat on the inside, any toppings that they want, and they eat that. And then they're getting their grain or their starch on the side with something crunchy. So it would just be reading the food label and trying to stick to whatever serving size it says on the side so that you're not overdoing on that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and then at breakfast, you said you're doing your steel cut oats,
Yeah,
and there are a ton of nutritional benefits to oats, cholesterol, making you. I mean, it's a superfood. I wouldn't want you to cut that out. So do you eat more than this amount cooked of your steel cut oats?
It's probably a cup.
It's about a cup? Yeah, and if it's controlled, I wouldn't change that.
Right.
You know, I think that's pretty great.
I put some blueberries in it. Is that okay? So say with my breakfast, if I'm having steel cut oatmeal and blueberries, so I'm looking at like 1,400 calories a day.
Yeah, if that's your target, sure.
So then I'm looking at for breakfast probably, so to me that seems like a lot of calories. So say if there's 500, it's going to be about 300 for breakfast.
Right. Usually, like for the 1,200 calorie diet, like when I send you that meal plan, it'll actually have calorie goals for meals and snacks for you to hover within. And usually on the 1,400 calorie plan, it's like 250 to 350. You know, for breakfast. And there's really no perfect way, but the goal is just to spread it out. Okay. And then I think most people like to have a dinner that maybe is on the larger side. But I think you're thinking of that budget of saying, how can I spread it out, is very good. So I think breakfast could really stay the same. It's just analyzing it and making sure calorically it fits in, which steel cut oats might be a little bit more dense in calories. Like usually for oatmeal, regular oatmeal, 1 cup is only 160 calories.
Oh, really?
And even if it's more dense with the steel cut, it's not going to be more than 200. So if you did that, and 3/4 of a cup of blueberries is only 60 calories.
3/4, let's see.
3/4 would be somewhere between this and this. So if you wanted to have a whole cup of blueberries, that would just be closer to 80 calories, which is fine.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So it's just making sure that, 1 cup of blueberries in the morning doesn't become like 4 cups at night, right? Because then that could be adding up more than you realize.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And then another food group I like to talk about too, if I had to pick one group that's the most overeaten by my clients as well as myself, if I'm not careful, would be nuts and seeds. They're very, very healthy. I don't know, do you eat these foods?
Yes, I do.
Yes. So I have to get this out. I wish it was bigger too. That is officially 1 ounce of almonds. That's about 1/4 cup.
Okay.
Okay. So this has how many calories do you think?
I know almonds have a lot of calories. I would say that's probably about 150.
It's closer to 200.
Serious?
Depending on the nut, could be as low as 170 up to 210. So this, again, I would never want someone to cut this food out, but I will say I've had many a frustrated client who they're eating just the best foods they can think of, and I show them this, and they say, really, I have that 4 or 5 times a day, that portion.
Yeah.
That's the difference of 800 plus calories, which for women is huge. Huge. So this had fallen out. This is broken. This is my personal little Tupperware that I found as a way to control portions. So this is about 1/3 of a cup. So what I do is I make my own trail mix because they're cheap. So I would just get like an unsalted mixed nut and mix it with like a raisin. And then I have a 1/4 cup measuring cup that just lives in my big container. And then I fill that to right there. And I know calorically it's fine. And you get to eat the whole thing. So it's controlled and psychologically it's fun to eat all of it.
Right, so really this is about
depending on the size almond.
Yeah.
Some almonds, I've seen some giant ones. So that's where if you get your 1/4 cup measuring, then you know that you're controlled regardless of the size of nut. And then that would be peanut butter.
Oh, I don't eat peanut butter.
Okay, so we can take that one away.
I don't like peanut butter.
Yeah. And then also, I don't know, do you eat avocados? Nope. Okay, so we put that one away. This is also very dense in healthy fat, but it can add up more than people realize.
So, like, I do apples. I do, that's me right there.
Yeah. So I wish I had every food model on the planet, but but that would be the same size apple. So that's like if you visualize, that's like the size of a tennis ball. So a tennis ball size apple. Really, all of these fruits, for what you see, they're only 60 calories. 60.
Good.
So it just depends on how much you eat throughout the day, right? Fruits are wonderful. They're a great way to get natural sweetness, along with potassium and other things for blood pressure control. But it's just making sure you're not overdoing it. So the half a banana, you can eat more than a half, but all that means is instead of 60 calories, you're using 120.
Right.
So, it's not that the banana's evil. It's just more calorie dense because of the way it's put together. Okay. So, thank you for letting me play with foods.
That's oatmeal.
This is supposed to be lentils.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if you eat lentils. No. A lot of my ethnic clients do. That's why I got this one.
Now, what about beans? Because lately I've been doing beans. That's probably similar to...
It is nutritionally very similar. So this is about a half a cup of beans.
Okay.
So it depends on the bean in terms of the calorie content.
Yeah.
You would just do them out of the can.
No, homemade, like Great Northern beans, is, or baked beans. Which baked beans have sugar in it, so I have to watch that.
Yep. So that would just be, when you do homemade things, doing the analysis of the recipe once, and then just changing the yield. Okay. I know we're looking for what other fun stuff do I have from other protein. Do you like eggs?
Yes. I usually don't do
So, and no, it's not that you're only allowed a half of an egg. I think the manufacturer wanted you to know it is an egg representative. But this, eggs really are great protein, vitamin D in the yolk. They're pretty great. I know it depends on what year are they positive or negative. Some people do respond to the higher cholesterol level, but a lot of us don't. They kind of change their story on that. So I'm thinking this would be a great way for you to have protein on the go, for a snack, or even as part of your lunch, to throw that on top of your salad as opposed to, just doing chicken. Would be a good thing.
All right.
Okay. All right. So, and popcorn. Do you like popcorn?
Yes.
Popcorn is a pretty tremendous snack, actually. It's a whole grain. It's what we put on top of it that can change the health properties of it. But really, that's 1 cup of popcorn. You could have 2 more cups, so 3 cups in total, for only 80 calories before we put the butter on top.
Okay. So, but putting the butter on top will add...
Depends on how much butter.
So the little thing of butter that you... Yeah. See, the only time I really have popcorn is when I go to the movies. And then that movie popcorn is, I know. It's just a sometimes food. As long as you don't eat it every day, probably fine. Okay.
But that would even be in that calorie database of that. Do you want me to give you the name of that website?
Yeah.
It's MyFitnessPal. I wish I had all my...
I can look that up. I'm recording you, so it's great.
Oh, perfect. Well, I was going to say, usually I have a note sheet that I write things on. But that's
MyFitnessPal.
MyFitnessPal. Okay. And then the other website you can use, if using MyFitnessPal is a little bit too intense, because it's, it takes a lot of work to input it all. Calorie King is another place where you could put your Chipotle meal that you get or whatever it is, and it'll give you calorie info. It's like the accurate Google for nutrition information.
Last question, I forgot.
Yeah.
I eat cereal, and I just saw your bowl here.
Oh, sure.
So I do Life cornflakes. What else? Raisin Bran is usually.
Little Cheerios.
That is so cute.
Right. I always say it's not pouring.
Right.
Yeah. So all of those cereals, calorically, they'll vary a little bit. Like the Raisin Bran would be the one where I would just be careful with portion sizes because it's whole grain, but it's pretty dense in calories. So that just becomes a label reading thing of looking at the serving size and seeing how much is that going to use towards your budget.
Okay.
Well, hopefully you're recognizing that you can still have fun with food. It's just being creative within that lower calorie budget. And I think you've done a great job cutting down portions, but maybe this is just, you need something more specific now as your body has changed.
Right. Okay. And so in working out, actually is helping with that, because if I have, say hypothetically speaking,